Welcome to CIO Synergy, a virtual event presented by CXO. My name is Louis Jean. I'll be your host and moderator, and it is a pleasure to be with you today. Now, the purpose, you're probably wondering, what is this all about? The purpose really is to build communities. It's as simple as that within the office of the CIO, encourage peer-to-peer support and collaborations to help navigate the challenges, the opportunities in order to thrive within your business, within the work, within the role of the CIO. As we all know, today's CIO has evolved from a technical advisor to a business strategist, navigating uncharted waters where innovation must balance with ethical and socioeconomic considerations. We all know that there's so many opportunities, but challenges right now. Who controls the access to our data in a digital first world? How do we ensure equitable access to essential services as technology reshapes every facet of life? Definitely every facet of business. And to this unique challenges, of course, we all know in Canada, global political tensions, economic uncertainty. The future remains a complex puzzle, a main, and well, our panelists today will help us, will guide us through all of that. Just a reminder that this is a virtual event, but we hope that you can save the date and mark it down in your calendar, because November 13th, we will have a CIO meet. That is going to be in person. I think it was about a year ago, I was actually in Calgary. We had a wonderful CIO meet event. And so the next one is going to be November 13th in your city in Calgary. So please make sure to write that down, pencil it in, and save the date for our in-person CIO meet. Before we continue, before we go any further, I'd like to introduce our partners and sponsors from today. We've got two people that are going to say a brief word from Logitech and Applied Electronics. And start things off, let's hand things over to Mike Dalton from Applied Electronics. Mike, thank you for making time for us today. Now the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. We're proud to be a sponsor of this event and your previous events so far across Canada. Applied Electronics is a Canadian-based corporation specializing in the design, integration, and support of audiovisual, broadcast, digital media technology solutions. With nearly 67 years of experience now, we've built a very strong reputation for delivering innovative, reliable, forward-thinking solutions that help our clients communicate, collaborate, and operate more effectively in their organizations. We service a wide variety of industries, primarily higher education, corporate enterprise, broadcast media, and all levels of government, including municipal, provincial, and federal. Our key technology expertise spans areas of unified communications and collaboration, whether it be a Microsoft Teams, Room, Zoom, WebEx, or a hybrid of those platforms, classroom and training facilities, command and control, council chambers and legislative assemblies, and of course, digital signage solutions across enterprise, along with visitor management, space booking software solutions. We have 6 offices across Canada, fully staffed. Allows us to support our national clients, focusing primarily on the consistency of the delivery and of service and support. So whether it's a single site deployment or a multi-region rollout, we're providing our customers with seamless and consistent experience across all locations, which is very important to a lot of our national clientele. Along with the technology solutions, we have a full comprehensive suite of professional support offerings to ensure that our clients' systems operate flawlessly and as expected. So that is, if there's anything that we can assist with, we'd love to help out.
Mike, thank you so much for your support. Great presentation, appreciate it. Now we have Lynette Whitfield from Logitech. Lynette, welcome.
Hello, everyone. I'm Lynette Whitfield. I'm based just outside of Calgary, Alberta, and I'm the Enterprise Account Manager. I've been in the industry for 27 plus years in the video conferencing industry. So I've seen many changes from across the world. I used to live in Australia as well. And we are a Swiss-based company. So many people will probably have some sort of a Logitech device mouse, keyboard, headset, webcam in their personal space. But also, as you can see behind me, we have a lot of our workspace devices that are now in the offices. And as people are now, more moving back towards the office, they are looking at now, how do we revisit the way that the office is designed, whether that be from the office team environment of sitting at your desk. Do you have an open space? Do you need to book a flexible room? But also the meeting rooms. People are wanting to find meeting rooms, more meeting rooms. They want their experience to be better than what they have set up at their home. So when they come in the office, they want to be able to find a room, find a desk, connect to my team, and also have, if I use this Brady Bunch effect here, we want to see people's faces and smiles and expressions and their body shapes, etc., just as like you do here, but in the office as well. So we'll be sort of going through. Many of you are our customers, so thank you very much for your business, and we look forward to giving you more information throughout this presentation. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Lynette. Greatly appreciate your time and your support. Time now to introduce our expert CIO panelists. First up, Bryce Berry from Norton Rose Fulbright, Canada. Bryce, hello. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much for having me.
All right, and he's going to be our Zamboni driver and backup goalie for today. Hopefully we don't need you, but if we do, I'm 100% sure that you'll be able to do the job. We also have Wayne Weinheimer from Southern Alberta Institute of Technology. Hi, Wayne.
Hello, thank you for having me as well.
So happy that you're joining us, as well as Ryan McKenna, Olympia Trust Company. Hi, Ryan.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Can't wait to get into the discussion here. Just before we continue, however, we really want this to be as interactive as possible. So please be as active as you can in the chat room, ask questions, and we will try and get to as many questions as we can. So, please, if there's anything that pops into your head, if anything comes to mind, please do not hesitate to ask your questions. We really want this to be as helpful as it can for all of you participating in today's Synergy session. Also, I want to mention that there is, and I don't know if you can see it or not, but you should be able to see the survey. So please fill out the survey. There's many questions in there that could be very, very useful. So please fill out the survey while you're participating today. So, gentlemen, are you ready? Ready to get things started? Nodding. All right, thumbs up. There we go. Wonderful. Maybe the first question to set the tone is, what are the biggest challenges and opportunities for CIOs in the coming year and a half, 2 years? And perhaps maybe we start off, Bryce, with you. Some people would say that maybe the challenges and opportunities are the same.
Well, I think there's always the challenges around changing technology. I don't think that ever stops. But if you think about AI and where that fits in with our world today, and not just adopting it, but adopting it in such a way that it really gets the output or the outcomes that we're looking for. Cyber risk is a constant thing. Working at a law firm, that's a big one for me and our firm and our clients. Competition for talent. We've got 3 CIOs here, and we're all vying for the same people to fill the roles, and so that can always be tough. Business engagement. Obviously, we want the solutions that we implement to fit the needs of the business. So it's never ending. But the flip side of that is really it's exciting doing all of that, staying current, keeping busy, having really the conversations with our business leaders to then take forward and see how technology can solve their problems.
Wayne, and after Bryce, Wayne and Ryan, if you'd like to maybe just follow up, maybe Wayne, starting with you.
Sure. So actually, I think Bryce copied my notes. They're awesome. I think almost the same. Finding and retaining talent is a constant challenge. I think maybe SAIT has a little bit of advantage. I can tap into our student pool here a little bit earlier, talking to our instructors. And right now, I have over 20 students working in our IT department that have helped us. But cybersecurity threats obviously are a challenge, and budget, just with tariffs, within higher ed, a constant pressure from public sector budgets, international student decline. But I like what you mentioned about having we can take our challenges and turn them opportunities. So AI is a challenge, but it's also a wonderful opportunity. So how we can benefit from AI for our automation and help accelerate and we won't need as many talent as many people on our teams when we can automate a lot of these areas.
Yeah, I think it's a copy paste. So the largest opportunity for sure right now is artificial intelligence. There's been incredible strides in that space in the last 6 months. It used to be just making funny pictures of cats, but now we got agents doing the job of some entry level analysts, creating workflows, automating data inputs, and it's getting even more advanced every 6 months. Right, it doubles in its capacity. So in the next, I'd say, 2 years, there's going to be incredible strides in that, where it's going to be innovating itself, even coming up with new technologies that we haven't thought of, synthesizing drugs over the next couple of years, probably too. And after that, I think the challenge is going to be in augmentation, staff augmentation. Right? How do we get our people to sort of ride this wave with us, upskilling, reskilling, figuring out how they can work best with the technology that's coming into play and driving the innovations that companies want. And obviously, cyber risk is constant as well. They're always finding new ways to try to attack us. It's their full-time job. They live in places where they don't get paid to do what we do, so they got to make a living some way, and that's a great motivator for them to try to get into our systems. So keeping up with those guys is obviously a challenge.
Just a reminder again that please be active in the chat room if you have any questions for Ryan, for Bryce, or for Wayne. Please do not hesitate. We'll get to as many questions as we can. I find it interesting, Ryan, when you talk about riding the wave, and when we had a conversation together yesterday, it's it's an analogy that you used about that wave. And before we get into that a little bit deeper, I'm just curious for the three of you, for our three panelists, because of how fast-paced technology is and the changes, and do you guys ever have the feeling that you're behind? Do you ever get the sense that, is there something I'm missing? Is there something I'm unaware of? Wayne, you seem to be nodding your head.
Yeah, and I think that's normal human behavior with how fast things are moving. And I think let's take AI as an example. We've recently signed on with Microsoft and OpenAI to utilize ChatGPT and Microsoft Copilot. And in talking to both vendors, they say everyone they talk to thinks they're behind, right? So and that's just normal. So I think once you start talking to other areas, you find out that generally everyone's in the middle. There's always a few people that are leading, but those are the ones you hear about in the news. Those are the ones that we reflect on and we compare ourselves to. So I think it's important to, we talk about community. It's important to be on panels like this or to reach out to others to see, where are you in this area? And so that's one thing. I think that it's normal to feel you're behind, but once you reach out, you're generally not.
Bryce, maybe on that means that there should be, or as little as possible, gatekeeping. Is that something that you've noticed in the community? Because as we mentioned, I mean, the purpose for today's event is to build communities within the office of the CIO, which means how can you collaborate, how can you work, and how can my experience, the good and the bad, the failures and the successes, help others, and everyone in the end benefits. And I think you have a very interesting take on that, particularly in terms of gatekeeping.
Well, and I think part of that is the sharing of information. Even with competitors, there's a certain amount that you can just talk about, the wins and losses. You don't wish, anyone to fail. I think it's really just working together on finding those things. Because some of this as well, we always have to consider that as a community, the customers can influence our vendors. And by working together and understanding how we might want the technology to change, even on the pricing side, we're better together than apart. I think we also have to be mindful of when we start to look at some of these technologies, is that fear of missing out is a real driver for some organizations. And if you're too rash and you move too quickly, you can make mistakes. And I think that by learning from each other, you can try and avoid that. So I think it's really just working together across all industries. And I think, the three of us are from different industries and we still have lots to learn from each other.
And Ryan, what's interesting is when you're talking about surfing the wave, just how fast-paced everything is. The example of X or Meta in terms of the development that's done by AI. Can you share a little bit of that?
Yeah, I can't recall which company it was. It might have, I think it was Meta. They said about 40% of their development that is done right now is done by AI. So AI is to the point where it's basically a intermediate developer and it's doing 40% of the new development for them. So when we talk about riding the wave or surfing the wave, it's coming for us, right? It's going to happen. We can't stop it. We can't step out of the way. So jump on, see what we can accomplish.
So what are the concerns or what keeps you up at night? If, I'm not suggesting you should be staying up at night, but, cybersecurity is always the big thing. And Bryce, maybe, we can start off with you on this particular topic. Where is the information going? You've got probably people in your workforce that have been there for quite some time. And then you've got people that are coming in that are younger and eager and maybe they're doing stuff on their own. And so you may not know if you're exposing or if your company is being exposed by some of the practices that you may be unaware of. How much of a concern is that?
Well, I think with onboarding of new people, there's always the getting them on board as far as the processes, the governance, the policies, that sort of thing. And then it's a constant reinforcement, whether it's annual cybersecurity policy reviews or even just education. At the same time, though, we have to have monitoring to make sure that when people are doing things that maybe a student out of university was doing using ChatGPT, and sharing information relatively freely, is be able to monitor and find people and really explain to them why that's no longer appropriate. But the reality is our clients, the group that we're really protecting information for, they expect it of us. You're not going to leave. In the old days, you're not going to leave your notebook. And yes, I still have a notebook, but you're not going to leave it in a coffee shop and just walk away with a lot of information that someone can find and dissect and leverage. So it's no different than with the digital world. At the same time, though, and Louis, just talking also about people that have been with the firm for a long time, there's a generational leap that we have to consider, where with some of the new technology, even just making sure that people who aren't used to it, we can help them along the way as well, and not just always try and stay at the peak of that wave.
Wayne, is there anything you'd like to add to that? Because I guess the point being that the weakest link is the user.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think within higher education, we're at maybe at an advantage for our staff where there's a little academic freedom, or there's not as many controls in place to protect ourselves. And that's one thing I'm trying to change. A little history at SAIT. We used to have 8 IT departments. So every school had their own IT department, and we've since consolidated. And but there's still some of that. I can just go do what I need to do, and we don't want to stifle that innovation. We're in higher ed. It's a learning facility, so we have instructors that need to explore, and so it's being aware. And so that's one thing I'm trying to drive, is just an awareness of what's happening, and not saying that we're going to be a gatekeeper for that, but it's more or less just being aware so we can help monitor.
That's interesting, and that brings me to collaboration. As we mentioned, this forum is all about collaboration. You guys have mentioned how important it is within your peers, within your community, and so how important, more than ever, perhaps. And Ryan, I'd like to hear you on this. Is collaboration to make sure that you're breaking down the silos within your own company as well?
Yeah, collaboration is obviously very important. At Olympia, we happen to be pretty lucky. We have a great executive team here. We all work very well together, and the expectation is set from the top that if things are going to be happening, there's a request that we work together to make sure that all the bases are covered, from a risk perspective, compliance, and also from a requirements gathering perspective.
All right. So, question from, I hope I'm going to get this right, but Chudi Nzekwu. Are you seeing more success with top-down mandates for AI integration or bottom-up innovation led by empowered teams? Bryce?
It's funny because we've been trying to explore this, and really it's both ways. It's finding, meeting somewhere in the middle. So what we have is when we invest in any technology, we really try and have our usual list of friendlies, the people that we can always go back to and work with them because they are within the business. They're lawyers, they're legal assistants, whoever it might be, and get them to be early adopters. And then that might be across, levels in the organization. But one good thing is when you see critical mass and then you get like our managing partner is starting to use Copilot and she loves it. And when you have a voice at a senior level that is saying, not, try this out, but you need to be using this, the adoption goes up. There is an expectation that it's just going to be part of your day. One thing I will add as well is for a lot of people on new technology, they just, there is a bit of fear. There's just an apprehension of what do I do with this? And so we've really tried to, instead of IT showing people what to do, is we try and find those people in the practice that are willing to be spokespeople and champions. And we have a lawyer in our Toronto office that we'll go back to, and she'll share how she's using it, and that creates a bit of a light bulb moment for others through their business.
Maybe Ryan, on that front, to make sure if somebody at the top is saying we need this, it facilitates and makes things so much more easier now. Do you feel, and are we at a point now where the CIO is at the big table?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the role has shifted certainly from being viewed as a cost center to be more of a business partner. So we're there to, I think Bryce said it earlier, is we're there to enable change. We're not there to just install Office, right? It's what are your objectives? How are we going to help you meet those objectives? So it's less of a top down, hey, this is what we're doing. IT go get a server and rack it in the data center, right? They want to understand like, here's the problem we're looking to solve. How can we best approach this? And it's not just IT in the room, right? It's the business in the room. It's IT. It's risk. It's legal. Everybody puts their heads together and to say what direction can we go and how do we best approach this, minimize the risk, enable the solution, and get the business what they want. To that other question where somebody was asking about, is it top down or is it bottom up? And Bryce said it was both, and it certainly is both. At Olympia, we've got a couple of different initiatives in terms of artificial intelligence. One that was driven by our president, and the other approach that we're looking to take, and still to involve the staff is more of because some are apprehensive, not just because they don't know how to use it, but because they're not sure if they're allowed to use it, right? So the approach is that we want to set clear policy to say you guys are allowed to use these tools in this environment. It stays within our tenant. All the data stays here. You don't have to worry about sharing personal data across the internet or with other organizations that are using the large language models. And then to also set guardrails on what data is allowed to be used and how it's allowed to be used. And then we can get people innovating on their own, right? They can start to build their own agents. They can play around in a sandbox of their own and see if that's useful. And if it turns out to be useful, maybe we can promote that into the dev test production environments and use it across the organization. And maybe that person gets recognized in some way for their contributions. So certainly, I think both way approach for that.
And Wayne, I think you have an approach as well in terms of workload. If you could share your thoughts on that, I thought that was very, very fascinating. And I think it ties into what Ryan was just discussing a little bit.
Sure. So, in phrases of the workload, so I tell my directors and managers and my team to, when we do resource loading or leveling for any projects or operations, is to for all employees to use 70% as our utilization threshold, is to not go to 100%. Is that we tend to load everyone up, and it doesn't leave any time for any emergencies, but more importantly, innovation. And so I tell my team, take at least 10%. So that's think of it as an afternoon a week to put the projects aside, put operations aside, and to explore. And to that could be anything in AI or RPA or data analytics, just to explore and solve a problem that you've been thinking about, or head down a new direction. We had a major project, a business to consumer single sign-on project that just went live, and we won an award for here at SAIT. That started in that fashion. So it just came from a little innovation moment. Someone started tinkering, and about 18 months later, it's in production, and everyone loves it, and they won an award for it. So I think that just shows that, like, if we give our staff some time to think and explore, they're the ones that see the problems at that level, and we as CIOs cannot see all the detail, and so we have to trust in our staff and give our staff time.
And that must be amazing for culture, for the culture at the workplace, etc. as well, I would presume.
It does really help. It helps retain. It helps bring back employees. I just had an employee return back after a couple of years down at downtown, and so we're happy to see them come back. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Just a reminder that there is the survey, so we're asking you all that are participating to please fill it out. And also a reminder, November 13th, so save the date, November 13th in Calgary is going to be the CIO meet. So we hope that we'll be able to spend the day with you in person in Calgary to delve in, much deeper into some of the topics that we're addressing right now. So maybe, we mentioned culture. Wayne, you sort of went down that path. So Bryce, what do you do to ensure that there is a strong work culture, that the people, that employees are feeling seen and heard, and that they feel as though they're contributing, that their creative juices can flow and they can contribute with some of their ideas as well?
Well, it's interesting you ask that, just because we've had our senior leadership here in Calgary over the last couple of days talking a lot about excellence and what that looks like, and it's not these massive grandiose plans to change the world. It's 1% increase. It's here and there where we can make things better. One other thing that we're really trying to do is get people in IT to really understand what are our users going through. So we've started to implement just monthly town halls of a day in the life. We'll bring a lawyer in, and they'll talk about what is their day like, what do they do, and also, how do they leverage our services? How do they why are our IT services important, and what happens when things go wrong? And so we're trying to get people just to understand that, especially with people over the last few years working remotely more often, their work matters. And I think that when you make that connection and they understand where their work factors in, to the firm's bottom line, we hope it has an impact. And, we're starting to see a difference. It can take a while, but it's something that really just trying to reinforce that with people across the department.
And so with automation becoming a word that everybody knows more about nowadays, Ryan, how do you sort of navigate the possibility that I may be doing work for you, but I may become obsolete in a year or two?
Yeah, I mean, it's a common concern, especially with AI right now. It's the rapid pace that it's evolving. But when people used to work a farm, there was 100 people farming a field, and then the tractor came along, and now there's one guy farming a field, right? It's a shift. Those people didn't stop working; they went on to other jobs, and so I think it's going to be a lot of first enabling our people to use these tools as they are, right? Like we have to go back to that riding the wave analogy. You have to learn, you have to reskill, you have to upskill, you have to figure out how these things are being implemented and have the skills to use them, at least in the next 5 years or so. So it's going to be, there will be a shift in terms of what people are doing, how they're doing it. But I think given people the ability to learn these things and be creative with them and innovate along with it, I think they're going to find new skills and they're going to find new opportunities.
All right, in the chat room we have Rohit Patel Emphasis. who writes, Bryce, Wayne, and Ryan, from the cybersecurity perspective, have you started exploring or thinking of exploring post-quantum cryptography and quantum key distribution, given quantum computing is progressing rapidly and pose a significant threat to the current ECC? RSA-based infra, especially considering harvest now, decrypt later phenomenon. I'm not sure which of the three of you, maybe who wants to take this? Wayne, Bryce?
I'll start off. This is on our risk register that we actually share with our Board of Governors Audit and Risk Committee, and it's in a monitor stage right now. It is challenging because the harvest and decrypt. There's not much you can do about that, to be honest. You can put all the controls in place, and we think we have everything, but you could find out like Microsoft did it a couple of years ago that the Russians were in their systems for 6 months before they even knew, right? So it is challenging, and it's on a risk register, and just in a monitor stage right now.
Anybody else?
Louis, I'll maybe add, so this is a big part though of your agreements with your vendors. Understand where your data is being stored, data residency, where it's being processed. Even when we talk about Copilot, you've got enterprise data protection that you need to make sure that you've got on. You've got your own environments that you need to manage. But as Wayne said, you can stay up late at night worrying about a lot of things. If you can't control them, well, think about, is it just something to monitor at this point?
So is it naive to say that there has to be trust? I mean, I'm not sure that the CEO would say, would probably agree with, well, we just trust that their word, we trust that they're doing things ethically, and that we won't have a breach. Am I being naive by saying that there is a bit of a trust element, that sometimes your partner or your vendor becomes a partner?
Well, trust but verify.
Yeah, but the harvesting of data, like the collection of it right now, like he's right, there are people just out on the internet just passively sniffing traffic and hoping that when quantum becomes available, they can just decrypt all of that traffic and find out what your banking password was at the time and stuff like that. So it is a risk, and like Wayne mentioned, it's nothing that we can do at the moment. Like, these are the technologies that we have, and if this is what's going to be available to them in the future, they're going to be able to decrypt it. There's going to be ways that we can protect against it when we get to that point, like quantum computing. If we get to that point where it's used prevalently, there would be different methods for encrypting and decrypting data, right? If the state of the data changes because it's being inspected, that would invalidate the stream, and that connection would be severed, right? Because the whole nature of quantum computing is that if you observe it, the state has been changed, so it knows that it's not working anymore. But I heard that Google shut theirs down recently, a couple months ago or something like that. They had it was generating artifacts in the quantum computing, and they didn't know what the artifacts were. They thought was hieroglyphs or inventing its own language or something like that. And so they brought in a bunch of experts to review it, and they had people thinking that maybe it was becoming conscious, or maybe it was deriving things out of the quantum universe that we can't see. And then they brought in an ethical hacker. I think his name was Ryan Montgomery, and he came in and he looked at it from just a cybersecurity perspective, and he realized that these artifacts were actually a backdoor of somebody could use to find out what questions were asked and which answers were given. So from what I understand, Google had to shut that down. They have to rethink how this works in order to provide quantum computing in that respect. And I haven't heard Microsoft shutting theirs down, so maybe it's still progressing. I don't know.
Wow, that is scary and fascinating. Maybe we talk so much about artificial intelligence. Bryce, maybe start off with you. What's the next thing? Are you guys spending any time trying to figure out what the next big thing is going to be?
No, because we're a law firm, so we really need to consider what is our core competency. Like, we want to be able to leverage our partners in the industry and our vendors, as we've already said, like we need to keep current where we can, but I'd also rather my team focus on what we have today and at hand. And then as our vendors continue to mature, if we think about, Gen AI, how quickly it exploded. I don't think anyone really foresaw what would happen there. I'm sure there's, some people watching the market and maybe they saw glimmer of that, but it's not something where I'm not necessarily paid to think 5, 10 years down the road. I've got I've got challenges in hand today that I need to mitigate.
And Wayne, how much of that is that a bit of an issue for you? Are you trying to sort of project and see what is coming up or what could potentially be around the corner?
We are, and it's because of our mandate, our focus in being an institute of technology, and we want to be teaching those emerging technologies. So one of the things that it's on ITS's roadmap that will help facilitate for the end of 25, 26 is setting up an emerging technology center of excellence, and we're going to base that on our AI governance model that we've created. Is take that into how do we quickly address emerging technologies, because like Bryce mentioned, just how quickly Gen AI has overcome and become such a huge discussion point. But what is that next one? We want to be ready for it and help integrate. One of our strategic goals for SAIT in the next 3 years is to embed AI not only within our teaching and learning and our administrative, but we want to prepare our students to be AI ready in their field. And so imagine definitely for our School for Advanced Digital Technologies, we have developers who are going to be using AI to help augment their skills, but also chefs, welders, dental hygienists. Is how do they use AI to improve their skills? And that's what we're actually businesses are asking for that now.
Now, in terms of Ryan, just the role of the CIO, I know that, and I think Wayne, you're the one who brought this up. You talked about how maybe the role of the CIO is evolving, and maybe it's going to be split up in different entities. Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer as well is something that we're starting to see that didn't exist not so long ago. And so, do you feel that that's sort of where things are going as well, Ryan?
It could. Hard to say. I mean, we have it used to be just manager of IT, and you call them if your computer breaks, right? And now we've got CIO, we've got CTO, we've got CISOs. Entirely possible that we'd have a chief artificial intelligence officer as well. Hard to say where it's going, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Curious to know, and yeah, please, Wayne, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, I'll add on to that. Is that there are a few institutions within Canada right now that do have chief artificial intelligence officer and chief data officer, and that's where I do see a challenge with the role splitting, where we the CIO group used to be in control of all these domains, but now we have to be more collaborative and more relational in meeting with those now peers that have that different focus that used to be our focus. And so I think the benefit of that splitting, though, is that it's overwhelming. If that was all within a CIO's role, is that within a larger organization, I do see that splitting can be a benefit.
Thanks for that, Wayne. I see somebody in the chat mentioning I don't see the survey in the Zoom session. Is it somewhere else? So perhaps Harshal, you can write in the Q&A in the chat room where we can find the survey. Just a reminder again, if you maybe showed up a little late, that we're going to have a CIO meet in person live in Calgary on November the 13th. So maybe put that in your agenda, put that in your calendar, save the date. Looking forward to being able to have several discussions, and it's really a very dynamic time that we spend together with different CIOs to talk in person about challenges, opportunities for the role of the CIO moving forward. Maybe coming back to, some of the questions that we have here. Again, Chudi, who writes, are you seeing engineering roles shift? Example, fewer IC builders, more system level orchestrators, and how are you adapting your organization chart or hiring plans in response? Anybody want to take that?
Well, I think it will depend on the organization. Again, as a law firm, so we have a development team, we have technical resources, but really the organization is going to dictate to the degree to which those resources, how technical they need to be, and how broad they might need to be. So I think that's you go to a software development company today, it's going to be quite different than a law firm, and I'm sure that's where organizations like SAIT are having to keep up with just the training programs, as Wayne said.
Anybody else would like to add to that?
I'm not familiar with the acronym IC Builder, but if he's talking about like secure orchestration in terms of Kubernetes, certainly there's a lot of focus put on that. You can scale up and scale down dynamically. So, and building infrastructure as code is obviously very important as well as we move to the cloud, right? It's the backup solutions don't back up your scaffolding, so you have to have a way to recover that as well. Hopefully that was the question.
We have another one here from some of the webinar participants. What factors are most important to your organization when selecting an AV integration partner? Select up to 3. So what factors are most important to your organization when selecting an AV integration partner? So A, global service and support capabilities, integration with existing IT infrastructure, or third option, cost and ROI considerations. D, vendor reputation and experience. E, scalability for future growth. Or F, standardization across multiple locations. Wayne?
G, all of the above. Sorry, G, all of the above. No, there are many factors, and it really depends, right? To me, is just service delivery, being able to deliver what we ask of them, and a lot of our AV. It has to be very timely. We have students in our labs or in our classrooms waiting, or the classes are canceled if we have AV issues. So that definitely is a priority for us, is just being able to deliver that quick service.
Another question we have here, Bryce, I'd like to hear you on this. What is the biggest challenge your organization faces in managing AV technologies across multiple locations? I'm not sure if this applies to you or not, but ensuring consistency and standardization, managing remote support and troubleshooting, keeping up with emerging technologies, budget limitations and cost control, or securing executive buy-in for upgrades. I think it probably does, yeah.
Yeah, so we have offices in Vancouver, Calgary, Toronto, Ottawa, Quebec City, and Montreal. And the reality is that being a part of a partnership, partners want to be able to go into any of our offices and meet with clients, in the office or remotely, and have the same experience regardless which office they're in. And there is an expectation that things will just work. And so the expectations that we have, that our users, our partners have for us, we have to have those of our vendors as well. So and one of the challenges I think is ensuring that without me having to visit every office to confirm. So again, vendor agreements, and as Wayne said, making sure that our requirements are met is key.
How about just making sure that everybody understands the lingo or where it is that you are going? I mean, if I've been with the company for 30 years, and somebody's coming in, chances are the young buck, or I don't know what the equivalent to a young buck would be for a lady, but
a doe.
Well, a doe. Okay. Well, the young doe coming in, they understand everything, but how do you make sure that there is a consistency, Ryan, across the board in terms of everybody understanding the technology, how to use it, etc.? I know that seems probably very simplistic, but I'm not sure that it's that easy.
No, training is the biggest key there. I mean, obviously we have our policies, procedures. People read those when they get onboarded, and then they forget them. And you have to reference it again or retake that training every year. And the onboarding training with individuals just for their role, what technology do they need in their specific role, and how do they use it? So a robust training plan for new hires is key, and as well for IT professionals, right? Like we use the same technology as the business, but we also use a bunch of other tools, and how do we manage that? And that of course leads into the shadow IT component. Like how do you promote the use of innovation with still keeping people inside the guardrails, right? Like don't go out and just use Chat GPT and feed a client list to it, right? Like you can still innovate, use Copilot. It's in our tenant. The data is safe. And if you guys want tools, if you need tools to do your job, that's our role as a CIO to make sure that you guys are supported and that you have the tools that you need to succeed. But let's work with the organization to onboard these things so we can mitigate the risk as well.
Anybody else? Wayne, Bryce, would you like to add to that before we go to another point?
Maybe just add quickly is we like to use communities of practice or birds of feather. I'll use our data community of practice as an example. Is we pull all data mined people from all different departments through SAIT and to discuss how they manage data. So it's part of our data governance practice. So we have the community of practice, or it's also called birds of feather, that they share. They just share how we do this and best practices, templates, framework, and that's for new staff, but it's also consistent messaging to a staff that's been here for a long time.
Okay, we have another question in the chat room. What are some of your challenges in receiving comprehensive AV service and support? So select the ones that apply to you. A, sourcing accessible, reliable, consistent support across multiple office locations. Managing, that was A. B, managing meeting space availabilities, meeting space downtime. C, delivering consistent experience across multiple locations. D, response time. E, sourcing support after warranties are expired. I know there's a lot of, you have to have a very good memory if you're going to remember all these here. F, working with different integrators depending on who initially installed the solution. G, upgrading existing hardware with new features and functionalities. H, sourcing support from geographically remote locations that are difficult to get service support. That's in the webinar chat if you want to take a look at it to be able to answer it. That might be a little bit easier, but anybody want to take a shot at that one?
Well, I can, as Wayne said previously, it's really all the above. But one of the things, I guess, and the real challenge is finding a partner that wants to get to know us. If you work with a vendor that treats you the same as everyone else, that's not necessarily going to work because every organization is different. The needs are different. Priorities are different. The state of their technology is different. And so it's really just finding someone that gets to know you and really you can maintain that relationship. And be able to have a conversation where it's not necessarily a good news story. Something goes wrong, let's talk about it. And what are you going to do to change it? And so avoid that in the future.
Maybe I'd like to hear from you, from Wayne, from Ryan. Ryan, we'll start with you. What are some of the things that you would like to address? Is there anything that for you is like a burning issue or a burning topic that you're like, I'd like to know or pick my other colleagues' brains on this in particular?
Well, AI certainly. I mean, it's top of mind for everybody, and it's innovating so quickly and rapidly that what are we doing to utilize it and still maintain some semblance of control over our data and security. So I think everybody's, like Wayne mentioned before, everybody's sort of in the same boat where you think you're behind, but you're really all in the same stages of implementing this stuff. So that's sort of top of mind for me as we have started onboarding some of this stuff. We have started allowing our staff to use LLM and started doing our own agents as well internally. But where is it going? How quickly is it going to innovate, and how rapid is the change going to be for organizations to adopt and still maintain some level of security?
And Bryce, to use a sports analogy, I think in our chat you mentioned how there's nothing wrong with sharing your game plan because not everybody has the same team or same right. So
Exactly.
you may have a game plan. Why not share it? Because it may not apply, or it may work differently for another company, another institute, whatever.
Exactly. And that's the thing is, I think that there's so much we can learn from each other, and not just about the technology, but even on our people of, ways to engage them, or, organizations or vendors where things are going well. I think it's just, there's so much, and our budgets are different. Our timing is different. We might be doing something like zero trust, and that might be for someone else a year away, but just learning from each other, I think is so critical. And, going back to what Ryan said about organizations, Ryan and I had a chance to meet, several weeks ago at one for the first time. And it happens that he uses our firm for cybersecurity, breach coaching. Wayne and I have known each other for a long, long time. And it's great just to sit down over a drink and just share. And I think that that's another thing that we fail to maybe remind ourselves is like the CIO role is one that is really at this critical point for so many reasons. And I think you're not necessarily able to talk about some of these things with your staff or your users. And so being able to sit down with someone who's dealing with the same thing, it helps immensely, I think, in just a bit of a stress relief opportunity.
Anything that you'd like to address as well, Bryce?
Just actually on the user engagement, I've heard, and at some of the CIO events, we talk about, our staff, and it's not always about money. It's not always about, the technology, but yet some organizations are able to really develop a lot of, people over time. And I'd love to learn about that. We try and promote from within wherever possible. But it would be great to know what are other organizations doing as far as their people and retention, retraining, and just even using alumni, people who have moved on, but they're, always willing to, pass resumes by of people that might be interested to join the firm.
That's very interesting. We're kind of running out of time a little bit, but that's very, very interesting, and I'm sure it's something we can, discuss even, more in depth on the November 13th during the CIO meet in Calgary. Wayne, for you?
I think for me, my biggest focus is challenge is going to be data, is just managing data and just understanding where it lives throughout the organization. How is it governed? How is it stewarded? And because data is the foundation of AI, and if we start using Copilot, which we have been for a while, but ChatGPT or other models it's going to review all of our data and what state is that data in. So garbage in, garbage out. It's just going to find that information and hallucinate even more. And so that's my challenge right now is on data. And I did want to speak a little bit too about the sharing and the collaboration is, I was at a recent conference for Canadian higher ed IT. So we share quite a bit in institutions. And there's one comment I heard in two different panel sessions and with CIOs, and they mentioned the word lonely is how the CIO role can be seen as lonely. And how important these meetups are, or these panels, or these organizations and groups is to, like Bryce mentioned, just share information and commiserate sometimes, but also share success, share failure. And I think it is really important. And I've heard lonely, like it was kind of shocking to hear because people were being vulnerable at the time. And I think that's one thing that we have to be as well.
That's very good. Anybody else would like to add to that? I think that opens up an entirely different kind of conversation, which is amazing. You're right, vulnerability, authenticity, and to me, one of the things that I'd like to address, we won't have time to do it now, but hopefully when we're in Calgary in November, is leadership, types of leadership as well. Because before we started, Wayne, you mentioned something along the lines of making sure that you're developing somebody who could potentially challenge or take your job at some point. I guess that's the goal. That's what true leadership is, right? Is to prepare people for, maybe to replace you, or to, if you move on to another company or whatever, you want to have people that you've been able to foster and build, and maybe even mentor.
Succession planning is key to me, is understanding like who right now could take over my role. We used to say, get hit by a bus, but I prefer win the lottery. So when I win the lottery, is that someone could just come and jump into my role.
Wonderful. Bryce, maybe I'll leave you and Ryan with the last words of wisdom or advice in terms of leadership, or
maybe it's an offer, I guess, for everyone and all the attendees, is you've got our information, feel free. I'm sure all of us would love to have a conversation, whether it's, via LinkedIn or just a meetup for coffee, because I think that, again, it comes back to that. This is a community.
And Ryan?
I agree. I don't have any nuggets of information that are going to transform anybody's life, but I agree with what the guys have said here. Like, one of the key tenets of being a leader is not just getting the job done for the organization, but helping other people become leaders, right? A manager can manage, a leader will teach other people to be leaders. That's actually something that my old leader taught me. So
there we go. That comes down to mentorship as well, and having a strong culture. Gentlemen, Bryce Berry from Norton Rose Fulbright, Wayne Weinheimer from Southern Alberta Institute of Technology, and Ryan McKenna from Olympia Trust Company. Thank you so much for making time for us today. We said 60 minutes. We're almost right on the money. Thanks again for participating in CIO Synergy, our virtual event. Again, a reminder, November 13th, live in Calgary. We hope to see you there. For an in-person event that goes much more deeper, much more in depth in terms of how can we help build communities within the office of the CIO. I'd also like to thank our partners and sponsors, Mike Dalton from Applied Electronics and Lynette Whitfield from Logitech for making this possible. I hope you got, you enjoyed today's session. Thank you as well for all of you who participated with questions. I hope you got tremendous value from this. And from on behalf of CXO, thanks so much for being with us today. And we hope to see you in November. Thank you so much. Take care, everybody.